At 0300 hours on a Tuesday morning, the most important 21 miles of ocean on planet Earth went dark and silent. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow choke point through which 21 million barrels of oil flow every single day, representing 20% of the entire world's petroleum supply, had just been declared closed by the Islamic Republic of Iran. The announcement came simultaneously on Iranian state television through an emergency maritime broadcast on all shipping frequencies in the Gulf, and through 3 Iranian Navy vessels physically blocking the center of the shipping lane with their running lights off. Within 4 minutes of the broadcast, oil futures markets in London and Singapore began moving. Within 9 minutes, crude had jumped $22 per barrel. Within 90 minutes of the strait going dark, oil had crossed $147, and traders in New York were seeing numbers on their screens that they had never seen before outside of their worst-case scenario models. By the time European markets opened 4 hours later, crude was trading at $200 per barrel for the first time in history, and the finance ministers of Germany, Japan, South Korea, and India were on emergency calls with the U.S. Treasury Secretary asking a single question: how long will this last? The Iranian operation had been assembled over 2 years with a discipline and patience that reflected everything the IRGC had learned from studying American responses to previous provocations. The centerpiece was the minefield. Over a period of 11 days disguised as routine fishing activity, 17 IRGC vessels had laid 340 EM-52 rocket-propelled mines across the primary and secondary shipping lanes of the strait in a pattern specifically designed to defeat American mine countermeasure operations. The EM-52 is not a simple contact mine. It sits on the seabed and launches a rocket-propelled warhead upward when it detects the acoustic signature of a large vessel passing overhead, making it nearly impossible to sweep with conventional equipment. Behind the minefield, 14 mobile Noor and Qatar anti-ship missile batteries had been positioned on elevated terrain overlooking both the Iranian and Omani sides of the waterway during the previous 3 weeks, their crews living in the launcher vehicles to avoid any detectable pattern of personnel movement that American satellites might flag. 4 Kilo-class submarines had been pre-positioned in the Gulf of Oman, south of the strait, to intercept any American naval vessels attempting to force entry from outside. And 80 IRGC fast attack boats armed with C-14 anti-ship missiles were staged at 3 bases along the Iranian coastline, ready to swarm any vessel that attempted to transit regardless of nationality or flag. Iran had spent 2 years turning 21 miles of water into the most heavily defended choke point in the history of naval warfare. The first tanker to test the closure was the Maltese-flagged crude carrier MV Titan Star, carrying 2.4 million barrels of Kuwaiti crude, bound for Japan. At 0347 hours, its captain received the maritime broadcast, saw the 3 Iranian Navy vessels blocking the lane ahead, and made the only rational decision available. He stopped engines and reported his position to his company's operations center in Athens. Within 40 minutes, 11 more tankers had stopped or reversed course. Lloyd's of London suspended insurance coverage for all vessels attempting Hormuz transit at 0530 hours, which meant that even captains willing to risk the passage could not legally move their ships without insurance. The Strait of Hormuz was not just physically blocked. It was commercially, legally, and militarily closed. 21 million barrels of daily oil supply had nowhere to go. In the Situation Room, the National Security Council had been assembled since 0320 hours. The economic modeling was catastrophic and getting worse by the minute. Every day the strait remained closed represented a $2.10 billion impact on global economic output, not counting the multiplier effects of energy price increases cascading through manufacturing, transportation, agriculture, and every other sector that runs on petroleum. The Joint Chiefs presented the military options at 0430 hours. Option 1 was a diplomatic approach through back channels, ruled out immediately given Iran's 2-year preparation timeline indicating this was not a negotiating tactic, but a strategic move. Option 2 was a limited naval demonstration, ruled out because the minefield made any surface vessel approach suicidal without prior countermeasure operations. Option 3 was Operation Clear Passage, the full military plan to destroy Iran's blocking capability and reopen the strait using a combination of submarine operations, airstrikes, and mine clearing. Trump approved Option 3 at 0447 hours. The order reached Admiral Patricia Donovan aboard USS Abraham Lincoln, positioned 40 miles south of the strait in the Gulf of Oman, at 0503 hours. The Virginia-class submarines USS Delaware and USS Vermont moved first. Both boats had been tracking the 4 Iranian Kilo-class submarines since their departure from Bandar Abbas 11 days earlier, maintaining a constant passive sonar solution on each contact through the deep water channels of the Gulf of Oman. At 0515 hours, both American submarines received their firing orders simultaneously. 8 Mk-40 8ADCAP torpedoes left their tubes in 4 firing sequences, running at 55 knots through the dark water toward 4 contacts that had no warning and no time to respond. All 4 Iranian submarines were destroyed within 6 minutes. The threat to American surface vessels from below the waterline had been eliminated before the sun rose. Simultaneously, MH-53E Sea Dragon helicopters equipped with the NAQS-1 4-mine hunting sonar launched from the Lincoln and began systematic mapping of the EM-52 minefield, their crews working in the dark to build the complete picture of 340 mines that American minesweepers would need to clear the lane. At 0530 hours, 40 FA18 Super Hornets launched from the Lincoln in a continuous cycle, each aircraft carrying a combination of JASSM-A cruise missiles and AGM-88 HARM anti-radiation missiles targeted against the 14 Iranian coastal missile batteries. The HARM missiles arrived first, riding the active radar emissions of the newer battery fire control systems directly back to their source at Mach 2, destroying the targeting radar of each battery before the crews could engage. The JASSM-ERs followed 30 seconds later, destroying the launcher vehicles, the command posts, and the ammunition storage at all 14 battery sites in a coordinated strike that lasted 11 minutes from first impact to last T. 20 Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from the Lincolns. 4 escort destroyers simultaneously struck the 3 IRGC fast attack boat bases along the Iranian coastline, destroying 60 of the 80 attack boats at their moorings before they could sortie. The remaining 20 fast attack boats that had been at sea when the strikes began were engaged by FA-18s returning from the battery strike mission, the pilots hunting each small vessel with a GM-65 Maverick missiles in a series of low-altitude attack runs across the glittering surface of the Persian Gulf at dawn. By 1100 hours, mine-clearing operations had opened a 400-meter-wide safe channel through the center of the EM-52 field, wide enough for single-file tanker transit under American naval escort. The MV Titan Star, its 2.4 million barrels of Kuwaiti crude still in its tanks after 8 hours at anchor, was assigned an escort of 2 Arleigh Burke destroyers and became the first vessel to transit the reopened strait at 1147 hours. Marine raiders operating from MH-60 helicopters boarded and secured the 3 Iranian Navy vessels that had been physically blocking the shipping lane, their crews taken into custody without resistance. Oil futures markets, which had been watching the American military operation in real time through commercial satellite imagery and maritime tracking systems, began falling the moment the Titan Star's transit was confirmed. By New York close of trading, crude had fallen from $200 to $134, still historically high, but moving in the right direction. The Strait of Hormuz had been closed for 8 hours and 47 minutes. It had cost Iran its entire coastal missile defense network, 4 submarines, 3 naval vessels, and 60 fast attack boats. It had cost the world economy an estimated $18 billion in a single day. And it had proven once again that there is one nation on Earth with both the capability and the will to keep the arteries of global commerce open, and that nation had done exactly that before lunchtime.